Welcome, everybody. One thing I wanted to make sure that folks were aware of is that OCFSN is doing an equity scan at the moment. And here's the link. Please take it's an extensive scan, lots of questions, but it's been really, I went through it last week and found it really valuable to kind of review what's happening in the Farming for the Future working group regarding equity, racial justice, and I recommend folks when you have the time to go through this. It'll be valuable information for us as we move into coming strategic planning for the network and guiding our network's work on equity. So please take a moment to go through that. And without any further ado, I would like to just hand it over to this great team with this Policy Opportunities and Education Working Group to introduce our wonderful speaker, Rose. So Genevieve and Eric, take it away.
Hi, yeah, I'm Genevieve. My day job is with the Land Farm and Food Coalition. But I'm involved in this because I'm a policy nerd. And I'm really excited to have Rose Highbear here to discuss her work with the Interagency of Tribal Organizations and Agriculture. Sorry, I just said I'm nervous because this is my first time being the person who talks at the start of these. So please forgive me. But yeah, we're going to talk about her work, or she's going to talk about her work, and then we'll have extensive time for questions and answers. And then at the end, if time permits, I have some resources and some questions and some kind of things about how our individual organizations to do a little self-assessment on Native American engagement in our work, and resources on kind of who to talk to or get that process started, with some information from Tahoma Peak Solutions, who are great ladies, and then also talk about what we want to maybe do next time. So I think without further ado, Rose will not mess up what organization she's representing and the work she does. So I'm going to hand it over to her. Unless, Eric, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Eric was going to say something.
I think we're okay. We can just hand it straight off to you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, hello, everybody. It's nice to see you. I am not accustomed to PowerPoints, but I actually put one together late last night. We're going to see how it looks. We're going to see if I can manage it, because I really prefer just to do storytelling. I find it very distracting to have PowerPoints because it puts me back into a different place than where I was journeying. So as a storyteller, you know, this is challenging, but I really felt like I was saying a few minutes ago to Andrew, that I am a new member of the Intertribal Agriculture Council. I know a lot about my organization, but when it comes to the IAC, which is 35 years old, by the way, I think they formed in like 87 or something. I don't know a lot. And so I had to go online last night and double check to see what it is that I'm a part of. And I'm pretty impressed. And so here we go. Now I would like to be able to share the screen. Would that be possible? Because I actually produced a PowerPoint. Do I have the capability of sharing my screen?
Yeah, down in the bottom, those different, yep.
Okie dokie, I found it. Okay, there it is. And let me see, share. Let's see what comes up. Let me make it a full page. Okay, all right. Can you see my PowerPoint? All right, so as everybody knows, I'm Rose Highbear. And I am the founder and director of Elderberry Wisdom Farm. Up until this week, we were called Wisdom of the Elderberry Farm, but I was getting confused with my old nonprofit, which I ran for 30 years, Wisdom of the Elders, located in Portland. The spirit world had told me like 10 years ago or so to move out of the city and to, you know, find a place where Native people could grow food so they didn't have to starve to death. That's kind of like a short message that I received. And about 5 years ago, I did move. So we are now, as of this week, Elderberry Wisdom Farm. I just want to say that, you know, we always introduce ourselves as, if any of you have been to Native events, we always introduce ourselves in our native language. We tell our lineage on both sides of the family. And sometimes I've recorded elders and they've started to introduce themselves and they introduce all their ancestors with all the stories, and it'll be a 1 hour introduction. So people can get carried away and it's very cool. You know, that's the oral history. We're oral historians and storytellers, I guess you could say. But my mom was born in the same village that I was in McGrath, Alaska, on the Kuskokwim River, Alaska. You may never have heard of it before, but I was born there. Mom was born there. She was born on the other side of the river, and then my grandmother Sophie was born up in Anvik. If you've ever heard of Anvik, Alaska, on the Yukon River, it has been documented by archaeologists to be 14,500 years old. And I've recently been talking with people up there who have historical records, and I just love to know more about my great-grandmother Inutka and some of the lineage prior to that. I'm not interested in knowing about when the Cossacks came in from Russia and forced a marriage on my great-grandmother Inutka, but I would love to know more about my own ancestral roots. I feel very deeply connected there, despite the fact that it's like thousands of miles away, and I'm going to myself, now, why am I down here? But here I am. So anyway, as I'm talking about the Caribou people, I just want to share a little teeny piece of our creation story, because as you know, we have very long and elaborate creation stories that can go on for a long time. I know that I was invited to some event back in 1990, and they were going to tell all of the Raven stories. All the elders were getting together in Tanacross, and they were going to tell all the Raven stories. It was going to take about 4 to 6 weeks to do it. It was all in the Athabaskan language, so I didn't go. But, you know, we are Caribou people. And there is a little piece of our creation story of the Degatondane that I'd like to share with you, just so you know who I am. And so it was a long, long time ago, and our people had lost a very treasured elder. And so, as you all may know, we always hold a potlatch after 1 year to celebrate that person's life. And so this was a long, long time ago, as I said, and the people came from all directions, canoeing up and down the river and overland to be here because they really wanted to honor this elder who was so special among our people. And so for weeks they gathered, and the people told stories, they sang songs, they prayed, they renewed friendships and all the things that you do during a potlatch. And then of course they held a gigantic giveaway. This entire time they're feeding the people all of their food. And so here are the people, after the potlatch is over, the village is almost out of food, and it is getting to be fall of the year. There are beginning to be blizzards. And so they were concerned about what to do. So they were going out hunting as much as they could to prepare for the winter, which is sometimes very long. And so they did, in the winter, they had used up most of their food. They were very concerned about whether the elders were going to survive the starvation, whether they were going to lose their babies. And so the people do what we always do. We prayed. We prayed to Great Spirit, and we asked for help. We asked for help so that we didn't have to lose our families. And of course, the spirit world heard our prayers. And so the prayers were heard, and the ancestors in the spirit world gathered in a circle, as they always do. And they said, well, what are we going to do? We need to help them. And so they made a decision. They selected a maiden, a woman who had recently died, who had a very special life while she was down here. And they selected her to come back and bring a message to the people. And so she came down from the spirit world and hovered close to the village, came down to the village. The people saw her, and they all came out. And so she couldn't touch the ground, but she came very close to the ground, and she put out her hand, and from her heart came the caribou. They came across her shoulder, down her arm, and from her hand, they jumped off onto the earth. And so from that time on, we were related to the caribou. The Great Spirit put a piece of the caribou's heart into the Athabaskan people, and a piece of the Athabaskan's heart into the caribou. And that's why we're called the Caribou people. It's just a beautiful piece of our creation story. And I told it, you know, kind of like in a way that I would tell it. If you heard it in the Athabaskan language, there might be some differences, but that's how I tell the story. And it kind of explains why our ethnicity, our earth-based existence, our, you know, the caribou calving grounds, which we call the most sacred place on earth. You know, they call it Alaskan, what do they call it? Anwar, they call it our calving grounds for our caribou. It is so precious to us. It's the place where creation began, is how it's translated in our language. So I also, as you see here, this is the Yukon River. And the Yukon River flows out to the Bering Sea, and in the Bering Sea, located along that in the Arctic Ocean, are the Inupiat. And I do have some Inupiat blood. And so there is a piece of the Inupiat story that I'd like to share. And, you know, they're the people of the whale. It's the bowhead whale up there. So you may have heard of the bowhead whale, and you may have heard of the Inupiat people. Barrow, Alaska used to be the name of their village, and now I can't pronounce it, so I'm not going to try. But the name of their village has been restored to their old Indian name. So that story goes. So a long, long time ago, the people of the bowhead whale, the people of the whale, were ready for their hunt. And so what did they do? The people would gather and they would pray. They would get in a circle, the whole community. The whaling captain, as they called him, would gather all the people, and all the families that supported that circle would all gather, and they would get ready for the hunt. And so they all gathered and they offered prayers to the Great Spirit, to the spirit world, and asked for a successful hunt, because their people relied very heavily on the whale. For thousands of years, that had been their primary food. And so as they prayed, and their prayers came to the spirit world, a certain bowhead whale saw the prayer and wanted to respond to it. So it went into the village, and it looked to see how the whaling captain's wife was taking care of her family. It looked to see how she was taking care of her community, all of the families that were part of this circle. And then she went down into the ice cellar. You know, they have deep pits in the ground that is frozen solid, and that's where they hold their meat over months. They didn't need refrigerators and freezers because they had their ice cellar. And so the spirit of the whale went down into the ice cellar to make sure that it was clean, because that's where its spirit was going to abide. And so the next day, the whole community went out to the edge of the ice. They had ice in those days, and began the hunt. And that bowhead whale came up to the side and gave itself to the people. And so that's how, if you notice in both stories, the women have a very special role in our Native communities. They're leaders in the communities. They're spiritual leaders. They feed their families. They love their families. They pass the language, the cultures, the traditions, and all those along. And so that's a little piece of me also, because I do have that little bit of Inupiat blood. And so that's kind of my self-introduction. Now you have probably, you know a little bit about Elderberry Wisdom Farm, right? So this is our mission. We provide opportunities for Native Americans, communities of color, and public audiences to raise awareness of the rich cultural heritage and traditional ecological knowledge of America's first peoples. And what we do, we work with diverse collaborative partners, such as some of you, hopefully most of you, to provide educational and workforce opportunities so Native people can fulfill meaningful career pathway plans, strengthen health and wellness, and achieve prosperity. So it doesn't tell everything about us, because we have a very exciting initiative that I'm not going to get into right now. It's about 1017, and I'm not sure how long this is taking me to do all this work. I really want to focus on the Intertribal Agriculture Council, so I'm just going to jump over to them. And of course, I had to put a picture of Alaska Native women harvesting their berries, right? So there's a picture there. But the IAC was founded in 1987. We're 35 years old, to pursue and promote the conservation, development, and use of our agriculture resources for the betterment of our people. And so I think you notice among Native communities that our first priority is selfless service of the people. We always have to have hybrid business plans, because our first thing is selfless service. And so we're focusing on the people first, and we focus on our own needs in a secondary fashion. So I got to go to I just became a member in the fall of the year last year, and just in time to be invited with a full scholarship to go to their annual convention in Las Vegas. And so I had not traveled out of the state for a long time, and I was not certain, but you know, when you get an invitation like that with a full scholarship, you don't want to say no. So I traveled to Las Vegas and I got to attend the conference. I got to meet some of the people there. I think a little over 800 people attended the conference. And so there's quite a bit of information about, I'm just going to pull it up here. There is some documentation on the IAC members. So this is from 2017, these statistics are, but the data documents 79,198 American Indian and Alaska Native farmers and ranchers. That might be surprising to some of you because it's a pretty substantial number across the country and in Alaska. And they're making pretty good contributions to American agriculture. They support their communities and families through food production that totals 3.5 billion each year. So Indian farmers and ranchers work on more than 57 million acres of land that has a market value of over $3.3 billion. And so that breaks down to be 1.4 billion in crops and 1.8 billion in livestock and poultry. So, you know, if any of you come from South Dakota, you know, it's buffalo, it's up there, it's cattle, that sort of thing. We don't do very good in the gumbo of South Dakota with agriculture crops, but their big crop is, of course, buffalo and cattle. So despite that, the needs of Native producers in USDA programs have historically been overlooked. And Native farmers have been without the critical support that they need. And this is referenced in a document by the Native Farm Bill Coalition, if you've heard of that. I became a member of that, and I didn't, but Elderberry Wisdom Farm became a member of that late in the year. And so we're one of the members. There's hundreds of people that are members of that as well. It's a policy organization. And so the statistics are, let's see, where am I at? Here's the statistics from USDA. 4,912 white farmers in Oregon own 98% and operated 94% of all farmland. They generated 98% of all farm-related income from land ownership and 97% of income from farm ownership and operation. In comparison, Oregon has, I called USDA and NRCS to ask what the statistics are, and they said Oregon has 34 American Indian and Alaska Native producers and 8 Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander producers. So we have some catching up to do. I guess that's why Elderberry Wisdom Farm exists. So these and other farmers of color are more likely to be farm laborers or tenants than owners. They own less land. They generate less farm-related wealth per person than their white counterparts. And so that came from a document from 2019 by Megan Horst and Amy Marion. So I'm moving to, oh, I'm already on this slide. See, that's why I don't like PowerPoints. It gets me distracted. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the services of this awesome organization now. So I looked online last night. As you know, I became a member late last year, must have been in November. And after I got the full scholarship, I attended the conference thanks to Catherine Minthorn, who's a Umatilla tribal member. You may know her. She's now been promoted to be the Western representative of the Intertribal Ag Council. And she is from Umatilla, from the area Pendleton. But she's the one who invited me, and that's when I started my learning curve. And this is what I'm going to share with you now. Some of the projects of the IAC. So there has been a lot of funding given to Native producers with a disaster relief initiative. And so they have had many of the same issues that you all have had. And, you know, climate change is one of them. Another one is, I was amazed to see last night, the e-learning platform. So they got online curriculum that combines strategies, webinars, podcasts, in-depth online workshops. And you can see it at their website. They have a meat to market, and it's actually, it isn't the service of providing the meat to the marketplace. It's a business training for livestock producers all across Indian country. I almost forgot this one. There is a YouTube channel, and I'm going to see if I can share with you a video that I found online. It's just a really short one that I would like to share. Let me see if I can do it for you here. Just a couple minutes.
Manager for the American Food Safety Alliance, and from at least from one people. So
We're not able to see it, Rose.
Oh.
Indigenous Seed Keepers Network. And so today,
I'm so sorry. Hold on.
I'm not. I'm actually not sure how that works. There's probably a process for that to happen.
Here
I
it
think
is.
you, there we go.
Let me
There we
start
go.
over again. Tell me if you see it.
Yep.
so thank you for joining us today. My name is Shannon Bates, the current manager.
I can't
Yeah, we
hear
can't
her.
hear
I can't
it.
hear it though.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Indigenous Seed Keepers Network. And so today, what we're planning is for the next little bit is I'm going to give an overview of the Indigenous Seed Keepers Network, what we've been up to as a program.
That's
and
better. Russ, for the sound.
Can you hear it now?
Better. Mhm.
Your future. And then also creates a space for community partners to share some of their seed keeping. But before I go ahead and dive in, I'm going to Becky to introduce herself, and then I'll go ahead and get started.
Great, so Sagoy Swagwig, Tanyantigay na Niyamits, Wagwani, Becky Webster Niyamits, Otslunigay. Nakanilagig Talon, Niyamtagaga, Niyamagadapuacho.
Hey Rose.
But
We're not able to see it now. If you wouldn't mind putting it in the chat, the link, and I can give it a try here on my end.
Thank you.
You bet. You bet. We'll do it. And so it's on this PowerPoint. So are we back together again? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. If you could put this, I am not able to click on that link from the PowerPoint.
Okay. Can you see the PowerPoint though?
We cannot.
Well, okay, let me see. You have you can't see this PowerPoint that is up. Let me see if I'm sharing my screen. I think I stopped sharing. I'm so sorry, you guys. I was afraid I was going to get into this.
No worries. Yeah, if you can cut and paste the link into the chat.
What I'm going to do is share with you the, let's see, share screen, PowerPoint. Okay, I think we're back now. I'll just go back to my PowerPoint. I'm going to give you the PowerPoint to the group, and then on this slide number, what number 9 is the link to that. And so there are a substantial number. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
We're together. Okay, so all right. So I'm going to go back into the 20th century here and stop trying to be a 21st century person. I'll share this with you. You can see it. There's a lot of recordings and a lot of very long recordings, but anything you wanted to know about Native agriculture, you could probably find on these channels. It's just really remarkable, the services that they provide. So that's the YouTube channel. Let's see, there we go. And they have a youth program. So they provide internships, they give funding assistance for scholarships and technical assistance to groups of youth. And that is our future, as you know. They're tomorrow's elders. They're our history keepers of tomorrow, our storytellers of tomorrow, our you know, food gatherers of tomorrow. And so every project that we do in Indian country ordinarily highly prioritizes our youth. Now I'm getting on to some of the policy work, and I think this is a policy committee and all of you are really interested in what the policy issues are. And there are a substantial number. I could not begin to count the number of issues because since about 2017, Native people have been, well, they formed the Native Farm Bill Coalition about that time, and they started listing everything in the Farm Bill that they wanted to evolve. And so a number of those recommendations turned into resolutions and were passed into the Farm Bill. There's much more support of Native people now in the Farm Bill. And I just want to say, if I've said something negative about, you know, the balance of power on our earth in agriculture, I don't like to emphasize that, but I think the big thing here is that the USDA has done a remarkable job of listening to Native people and have really evolved the Farm Bill. Not to our total satisfaction, I noticed, but you know, it has made a difference. And there were like dozens, maybe about 5 dozen resolutions that they passed that evolved the Farm Bill so that it included Native people to a greater extent. So we're moving on to the Farm Bill, and that's, you can actually find this. I know that they're having a gathering in Washington, D.C. Starting this month and going into April, March and April. And there's even some special events at the NMAI, National Museum in the American Indian, a big food event. I would love to go, but I don't think I'm going to travel to DC just to have a nice meal with hundreds of Indians. But you know, that is some remarkable things that are going on in Washington, DC now that we have a presence there. And so that's something you can look up afterwards. And it's certainly worth looking into. And so there we have it. It's 10:30 right now. I wanted to give a lot of time for Q&A. So I'm going to see if I can get out of this PowerPoint and go back to the group and open the door for everybody to speak. Any questions that might come up? Wonder how I do this. Oh, here it says stop share. Okay, all right. Okay, everybody. Well, it's nice to see you all. And does anybody have any questions? I hope, because I've given you a lot of time to ask questions.
Yeah, Megan has a question.
Megan has a question. Yeah.
Hi, Rose. I'm curious to know if I'm familiar with the Northwest Intertribal Ag Council, and I'm wondering, first of all, if, and I have a follow-up question. First of all, if you are, now that you're a member of the IAC, which I understand to be national, are you also a member of the Northwest Intertribal Ag Council now?
Yes, I am. And it was Catherine, if anyone knows Catherine Menthorn, she's, you know, she's famous also for her res chicks. You know, they formed a cooperative of the women. They're all gathering their eggs, and we're trying to, I have one of my interns, he's a guy though. And so we've been joking around asking if there's a chance that Tracy, who's a Lakota guy elder, who's starting to form a poultry operation to make Tracy's pickled eggs, if he can be a member of the res chicks, and we haven't heard a response yet. But but yes, I do. She's the most amazing woman. And we have gone to the Food Sovereignty Network. The coalition had a meeting at Grand Ronde just a few months ago. We were able to meet hundreds of people from the local, and we are getting more acquainted. And so I don't go onto Facebook anymore, but I see, or I never have actually gone onto Facebook very often, but most of the activities on Facebook, which I miss. I'm just too busy. I run a nonprofit, if anybody knows what I mean.
Yeah, so I would love to clarify, understand a little bit more about that. So if you could explain a little bit about membership with the Northwest Intertribal Ag Council, that would be great. I'm curious to know if Elderberry Wisdom Farm can be a member of a formal member, because from understanding what you shared, your tribal affiliation is in Alaska. Your tribe is Alaskan, and so, or where I think of as Alaska. And I'm wondering if you can, without a a tribe here? Do you have a tribe here that you're affiliated with or a member of? And if that is associated with your Northwest Intertribal Ag Council membership, or if you need to have, my question is, if you need to be a member of an Oregon tribe, of one of the 9 federally recognized tribes in Oregon, to be a member of the Northwest Intertribal Ag.
So we are a member.
Okay,
And the nonprofit, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are a member. Me individually, I'm a staff member. Well, I'm founder and director there, but I'm just a staff member here. And so the important thing is that Elderberry Wisdom Farm, located in rural Marion County, is a member.
great.
I have not seen any recent activities of the Northwest group, but I have not had a chance to talk to Caterin for about a month. I've just been too busy. But I'm trying to stay up on details without going onto Facebook to see what everybody's up to.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of emails coming in, so I'm really connected with email though. And so I will let you know as it evolves. I think the relationship's new. I'm going to know more, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Great. I'm really glad to hear that you can have a formal membership and be engaged with, especially with Caterin.
Yeah.
And Rose, to what you were just talking about, because I'm kind of still holding in my head the idea about engaging stakeholders. So if you're not on Facebook, and this is how community building in this world is happening. So you said email is an effective way. Are there other ways that you would suggest to be more inclusive in those kind of spaces, to hold those conversations, so that way, we're catching folks who are not on Facebook, or maybe not even big email fans, because farmers in general also seem to have a bit of a thing against email now and again. So from your experience.
I don't know if I ever will. Maybe, well, see, they say, if I retire, I might have time to go on Facebook. But see, in my language, there's no word for retirement. So I'm stuck. I'll work until I cross over into the spirit world. I don't plan to go on Facebook much. Every now and then I'll take a link and look at something. But I'm just simply too busy. But I have staff. We're a baby. Elderberry Wisdom Farm, we get to celebrate our 4th anniversary in May. So we're 3 years old right now, we're like preschoolers or something. So as our staff evolves, we have some staff who are avid Facebook people. They're all there all the time talking. They know what's going on, and they bring that into our organization, but really believe strongly here that it's a group that runs this organization. So if I have people that are doing the social media and doing outreach, and by the way, I do have a woman who does our social media work. We go on sometimes. We have our Facebook page, we have our website, we do that stuff, but I don't get involved other than writing most of the newsletter that comes out once a month. So in terms of getting involved, I really have intention to do it, but I may never, but I do have colleagues who do. So we're going to just keep on working to raise awareness of who we are. A lot of people don't even know we exist. You know what I mean? We're just new. And so when I try to hire staff, when I try to find interns, I struggle. So there is a need for more outreach, and we are working on it, but I can only do it organically. Because I write the grants, I do the planning, I hire the people, I meet with my board. And recently we just changed our balance of power, where the board is helping me on major decisions, because I just do not like being a director. I'm really trying to become like the grant writer and the planner and, the wise grandma who's just, sitting around. I really believe in forming something I've been trying to do for a long time, which is a 4-person executive management team here. So we have 3 people in place, to be honest with you. We just have to find a 4th one that would be handling our projects. And our primary project is the Native Agriculture Biodiversity Accelerator. So our main project is that, and we're dedicating almost 90% of our efforts to it. We also have a Native Youth Film Project out of U of O. We're training 4 Native youth in filmmaking, which is very exciting. And Kia is helping me do that down in Eugene, so I'm not as involved. We used to be heavily involved in filmmaking, and I just realized a few years ago, I just have to give something up, as I get older. I'm 78 now. I can't do it all like I used to. And so Kia is helping to train 4 wildly enthusiastic young people who want to produce their own film. And we're saying, hey, you know, if you want to get rich, go to Hollywood and get rich, we're not interested in training you. But if you're interested in finding about your culture, your traditional ecological knowledge, your connection with the earth, your traditional foods, and all that, we would like to train you to produce a film on yourself and your journey of transformation to return to your cultural roots. So that's kind of what that project's about. And it is very exciting. It doesn't have much of a budget, but I don't have time to write grants for it. I'm too busy with this other one. But yeah, so to answer your question, I hope I answered it anyway. You know, once I start talking, I forget what the question is. So if I didn't answer your question, you can follow up.
No, I think that the idea, like, I want to rephrase one thing I heard there just to make sure I got it, because it sounded really important to me, is the idea of working as a team. And it's kind of like, one of the things is to know your strengths and what you want to be doing and what you're good at. And then knowing that there's this landscape. So, because thinking of ways in which we as an organization or members can address these issues is sometimes it sounds like just kind of knowing that that's not your thing and trying to find someone to work with whose it is.
Yeah. And so I think I love, you know, it takes a village, right? That's what they say all the time. It takes a village. Well, that's the way we are. And we really believe that consultation is the answer to leadership in our organization. As Native people, if we want to restore stuff, we have to restore Native leadership. And that involves everybody having a voice. You know, if you're at a tribal school, even the janitor has a voice, you know what I mean? The cook, everybody has a voice. And so the grandmas have a voice, especially some Native people, some tribes are really adamant about letting the world know that it is the Native elder females who make the decisions, the Iroquois Nation especially. So yeah, so I'm really interested in seeing if that model, not everybody, some human resource professionals don't believe you can put a nonprofit together with a 4-person executive management team. I mean, how are you going to fund those people, right? And so it's a more expensive infrastructure, but it is more human. So has anybody noticed how many executive directors are resigning these days, or forming like co-executive roles? You know, it's a burnout job, and we have to do what we can. We don't want to just continually burn out our people. We want to evolve, and so it's the group leadership. I think it's the future, because it's the past. We're bringing the old back, right? So does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Thanks for that, Rose. I think that's super important. And we see that in the Food Systems Network. Organizations are thinking about different structures, executive structures. Kathy Fergie was the tribal liaison for USDA and recently retired. And I'm wondering if you have a new contact with USDA in our region as a tribal liaison.
Oh, I wonder who that is.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything. Yeah.
Apparently I don't, or maybe they did. I'm sure they tried to hire somebody. They probably tried to hire a Native people. We're always scared that the USDA is going to get a hold of our people and, you know, pay them a higher wage and we're going to lose them. So, yeah. No, I do not know who the tribal liaison is. Thank you for asking. And I'd love to know. I'd love to talk with them.
Maybe Ashley has some insight. Yeah.
I'll just say as of about a month and a half ago or something like that, there is still no one hired to fill the position. They're still working on it. So
thank
a
you.
lot of information, but at least I think it's taken a minute to fill that position.
It takes time. I hope they don't find my staff. Yeah. I really am very easy to reach. If you email me, I'm quick. I can get back to you. It's other ways that I'm not available. I don't like to answer the phone because it's always ringing at the wrong time, you know? So yeah, so if anybody does want to talk to me, it is possible. So it's just through my email. And you saw it there. I even publicized it, rose@elderberrywisdom.org. Nice and easy. Does anybody else have any questions?
Rose, I'm really interested. This is Megan again. I'm really interested in talking with you as I'm working through our healthy soils policy and struggling with a few a few areas there that I think you might have some valuable feedback. So I may reach out to you in the next day or two. Possible.
Yeah, I would love that. I'm really into, we called our project biodiversity. And so it's extremely important. A few months ago, people were really into using the soil to store carbon, and I had an emotional reaction to it because, we regard our land as like a sacred landscape. And it's something we treasure, we honor, we pray to it, we talk to it, we sing to it. And so this whole thing came up because funding was available through USDA to do carbon storage. And I'm going, why are they using our sacred land as a storage unit? We need to use the biodiversity is more important than the carbon storage, despite what they say, in the climate world. So I'm all for climate stuff, and I would love to talk to you. I am doing a project that I'm really interested, and I just wish I could find somebody who would like to do research on it, because we're doing something called interplanting. So what we're doing is I have about 250, if they live through the winter, that is, 250 blue elderberry plants. And we're going to be planting them this fall. As you know, fall is planting season for native plant species. Just when the rain starts, that's when we plant native species. So we're planting 250 of the blue elderberry, which is native to our area. We're not interested in the American elderberry, the European elderberry. We're interested in what Great Spirit gave to us here in this local area. And, it goes all the way from Mexico up to British Columbia, I would say. So blue elderberry is prevalent all the way along the West Coast, but we're planting that, and this is called interplanting, so that we're making 20-foot rows, putting the plants 20 feet apart, and we're going to plant some other native plant species in that row. We haven't decided yet what, because I don't want to make decisions all on my own. And then in between those 20-foot, we're going to do agriculture. We're going to try and find heirloom species that are climate resilient. We live in the Northwest and we think it's heaven here, but it is going to be droughty and hot and freezing, and the thunders are going to come up and bring the winds and destroy half of our future. But we have to prepare, and so I think this interplanting idea is going to restore the biodiversity. Another thing that's really important to us is our hedgerow. So we did a 350-foot hedgerow down here on my 2-acre farm. We have 11 acres up in Aurora, and that's Woodburn Silt, which is our agriculture area. Down here, south of Salem, we planted 350 feet of native plant species all the way along the road. I live on Delaney Road Southeast. And so we have, we're trying to restore the native bees. And my board is telling me to stop joining things, stop signing up for working groups like you guys. They're trying to get me to stop doing things, but I can't even pronounce the darn thing. It has to do with bees, some native bees. It's a training that's starting this Saturday. I'd like to promote it to all of you guys if you're interested, but down here, we're really interested in restoring the pollinators. So that's my short way of saying, getting back to the interplanting project. We think that all of those mixed plants is going to restore the biodiversity of that soil in Aurora. It is an organic farm, but the voles found the farm, and the voles have taken it over. And I don't know, whether the voles are going to win or the Indians are going to win. We'll keep you guys informed. We're trying to figure out how to get the voles to move or whatever, but it is going to impact our crop. But we have to realize this first year of working on that, it's going to be development work. So, but our plan is with the interplanting and also to do some kind of smart irrigation. We'd love to have sensors in the ground, because we really don't know when we need to water. I've overwatered, I've underwatered, and I've lost plants both times. So I'm really interested in the climate issues. I think that I produced climate documentary film series for about, I don't know, since about 2008 or something. So I've gone up to Alaska and produced a couple documentaries up there, but most of them have been in Oregon here. And if any of you've seen them, it's called the Native Wisdom Documentary Film Series. And OPB usually airs it in November when it's Native American Heritage Month. But I am very interested in climate. I'd love to talk to you more and stay in touch all the way through this. And if you know any research going on, we'd love to be research partners with somebody, because we'd love to formally document the impact we're going to be making.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think Genevieve was gonna do some kind of like a, what is it that you're up to? I didn't quite know what you're doing, but you wanted to do a something or another, get feedback.
Yeah, so, this group is, it's very new and we're kind of trying to figure out where we plug in outside of just legislative policy and learning how to do that sort of craft and testimonies and skills associated with it. And so you had kind of talked about, like Native American engagement in our groups. And I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, boy, am I not an expert on that, nor do I think that my organization is necessarily doing a very good job of it. But I at least have a little bit of a background in kind of stakeholder engagement in theory. So I kind of just wanted to talk a little bit about that and then provide some resources that I have found in kind of starting to examine this question. So we got a few minutes left. I'm going to share my screen really quick, and hopefully this will be a participatory exercise for folks. And there's not a ton of us, so we can kind of, we don't have to break out into small groups or anything. But yeah, I'll kind of talk and then we'll go back and forth, and hopefully this will be useful is the hope. Let's see, which tab are you? Not this one, this one. Okay, so yeah, just kind of talking about the idea of stakeholder engagement in general, and then looking a little bit more at, Native Americans and their stakeholding positions and engagement. Megan, do you have a question?
I do. I just wanted to point out that that one thing I have learned, I think I have learned it, is that it's important that we don't refer to tribes as stakeholders in any state or federal policymaking process, because they are sovereign governments, and we have a government to government relationship. So tribes are not stakeholders in any of the state or federal policy process.
Okay, yeah, that is actually a very just good distinction to make, because I think I got to that idea in that
Great.
they, stakeholders are people who are positively or negatively impacted by things, right? And we don't treat them as that. And unfortunately, instead of honoring that tribal to tribal and government, nation to nation relationship, which I do talk about a little bit later, we often just ignore it. And so taking some of the ideas of this and then seeing if we're doing it at all. There's also the not just tribal councils, but also groups like Elderberry Wisdom Farm is then possibly a stakeholder as a collaborative organization in networks such as this. So there's the difference between talking to actual council governments and then talking to individual organizations that are 501c3 or individuals, because there's also always the danger of talking to a particular individual and expecting them to speak for an entire group and things. But yes, that is a really good, thank you, because that is probably not as clear as it could be in this. So, but yeah, so, we think about stakeholders in these terms, but as Megan stated, tribal governments in particular are not. And when we think about stakeholders, though, we do want to talk about these kind of engagement matrices. Well, this is just one, so it's a matrix. And this engagement matrix is true in decision-making and collaborative decision-making and consultative decision-making. And so you can kind of think about your organization in where you are placing different groups and where that influence is. So, we got to a point today kind of having Rose here where she is providing some consult, and so there is interest garnered and things like that. But what are we as the network then doing to form a reciprocal relationship to empower her work? And so that's the kind of question that I would like folks to ask. And when we approach these relationships is kind of like, when you are working with people, who are you kind of taking for granted? And how do you figure out how to have a less troublesome relationship? And in learning about groups and in this case, I am talking about stakeholders. When we want to learn if we are choosing to try to engage with, much less try to speak for or try to hold the position of empowerment, which is again, that distinction that is something that we should not be trying to do for actual tribal government. How do we get to know the people that we're trying to work with? And so one great way is just observation. We do forums and focus groups, interviews, one-on-one surveys, and then the existing of other data. So some of those things that the USDA collects and censuses and all that stuff that already exists are all kind of some of that other data that we don't necessarily need to create ourselves to be able to tell a story, but sometimes we can look at and tell a story. But then separately, we do want to acknowledge that we are working in areas that have these other governments that supersede on top of us. They coexist. We are on tribal lands and we are on lands that are not ours, and that there are sovereign governances that we need to be relating with in order to do this work in kind of an ethical way. So one way just to kind of identify who that is, and this was just a resource I wanted to share, and I can do this. And so let's do Salem, Oregon. And what this does is it will show you a map overlay, and you can zoom out, and it will show the individual peoples, the collective tribes, and then you can get into some pretty good detail. And so let's say if we want to check out the Kalapuya peoples, then we can go to an individual map here, and then there's here's how to contact them. These are the websites for the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and Siletz, who Kalapuya are, painted. And then there's other related things, and there's just good historical maps. There's other information. So this is kind of a nice place to start if you're like, man, I've been hearing these things, like I'm supposed to be doing land acknowledgements. I'm supposed to be doing these things. And I'm in no way encouraging people to do things just because they're supposed to. But I think that this is a valuable resource if you feel compelled in a real way to try to learn about the lands that you work in, that this is a good resource for that. And you can kind of start learning that. And then if you want to do the work to then talk to councils. So this is all from Tahoma Peak Solutions, which is a female Native run consultation organization. I 10 out of 10 recommend you pay them to tell you how to do this well. They're really good at what they do. But I just wanted to include, we're pretty low on time, and I figure people may have more stuff, but just kind of so actually I will go back to this. So this does talk about that we have a nation-to-nation relationship. This isn't, we shouldn't, as organizations that are non-representative of Native peoples, try to be making decisions on their behalf. They have the right to self-government, and they have a different system than ours. And with that, it is democratically elected, and you want to be respectful that their chair people and council people is a high level of, it's as big of a deal as being a, federal senator or something. And then, yeah, this just has, I'll share these slides because they're really great. But I'll just skip really quick to the best practices. Relationship building on personal relationships. And if you don't have those, trying to make them in a as personal way as possible, make phone calls, don't go asking something immediately, go to try to learn. Honesty and transparency, cultural humility, support Native-led solutions. Find out what folks are doing already. Don't try to come in with a solution. The next thing is a don'ts that they have, but because they may already have one and possibly could just use your support in it. Try to build long-term investments and relationships, take feedback, and practice reciprocity. Don't just take. And then, yeah, some of the don'ts. But it's all somewhat common sense, but I think that, figuring out where to kind of go and start these conversations can be a little intimidating. But that having just a little bit of guidance, and that truly, I think being honest and transparent does go a long way in any relationship building. So. Yes, and thank you for sharing that.
I was wondering if you wanted to respond, Rose.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate, I'm aware of that group and I do value them. And so there are a lot of wonderful Native organizations. We have a very strong DEI perspective. I guess we call it, though, race reconciliation. So we really believe strongly in welcoming people of all colors to our organization and into our circles and even at our ceremonies. And so I believe that it's really important. It's up to Native people to open themselves up. Not everyone is going to. And so you have to tread lightly. A lot of the things that were shared there are very important and valuable. And so, thank you for sharing. It's been wonderful being with you all today. Thank you for your interest in us and in the work of Native farmers and ranchers. And I'm just really excited as time goes along and I learn more about the IAE that I can share more with you. So, and especially when we get to be 4 years old, we're going to even be better.
Well,
Thank you so much, Rose.
Yeah, thank you, Rose, and thanks for your engagement with the network. We really value your participation here.
Well, my board is trying to get me to not be part of some of these work groups, but I'm not resigning from anything yet. Sometimes I can only attend a half a meeting because I got another meeting somewhere else, but I do really value the collaborative partnerships. And I think it's an important part of all of our futures to learn from one another, kind of like as family members. It's not as formal. I'm not as formal. And so I think that it breaks down into being a personal relationship when you establish trust and friendship with one another, almost like a relative instead of a stakeholder. So it's just something that I hope you can all learn and appreciate as time goes along. It's been great.
Thank you, Rose.
Thanks, all.
And thank you.
Thanks, Genevieve.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Great seeing you all. See you again at the next meeting.
Great.